Am I the asshole for kicking my sister out after she took over my life? Hey Reddit, I'm a 34-year-old woman from Dayton, Ohio, and I'm sitting here with a knot in my stomach, trying to figure out if I'm the asshole in this mess. My family's been tearing me apart over it, and I can't tell if I'm justified or just a jerk who's finally snapped. This isn't some quick little rant, it's more like an essay I'd have written back in high school, spilling out every messy detail of my life so you can judge me. It's long, so maybe grab a snack or something. I need your take on this. Let's start with my sister, Claire. She's 37, 3 years older, and she's always been the loudest thing in any room. Growing up in Cincinnati, our house was this faded yellow split level on a street lined with maple trees, and Claire was its heartbeat. She's tall, almost 5 feet 10 inches, with sharp cheekbones and this wild blonde hair she'd flip over her shoulder like she was in a shampoo commercial. She was the cheerleader who could do a perfect backflip, the girl who'd belt out wicked songs at Thanksgiving until the neighbors banged on the wall. Mom and Dad ate it up. Claire's our firecracker, Dad would say, his big hands ruffling her hair while he grinned like she'd just won the lottery. And Ellie's our dreamer, Mom would add, giving me a soft smile that felt like a consolation prize. I was the quiet one. Shorter, softer, with mousy brown hair I'd hide behind while I scribbled in my sketchbook. I'd sit at the kitchen table, scratched oak, always sticky with spilled juice, drawing trees or faces or whatever caught my eye, smudging charcoal until my fingers were black. I didn't mind Claire's spotlight back then. She was my big sister, and I loved her. She'd tease me, Ellie's too shy to talk to boys. Or, what's with all the weird drawings? But then she'd let me tag along to the mall, and I'd trail behind her, clutching a pretzel, feeling like I mattered. It wasn't perfect, but it was us. Our parents didn't help, though. They'd frame Claire's B-average report cards like they were masterpieces, while my straight A's got a "good job, honey," and a pat on the head. When I won a regional art contest at 14, my sketch of the Ohio River got 3rd place. They said, "That's nice," and forgot about it. Claire's 3rd place medal from a track meet, though, that went on the mantle next to her prom queen tiara. I'd stare at it sometimes, that shiny little crown, and wonder why my stuff never stuck. I told myself it didn't matter, I had my art, my quiet corner. But it piled up, little bricks of resentment I didn't know I was building. The first real break happened when I was 16. I'd been babysitting every weekend for the Millers down the street, 2 bratty kids who'd scream for mac and cheese, saving up $300 for this art camp in Michigan. 3 weeks of painting with real instructors, sleeping in cabins by a lake, a chance to be more than just Claire's shadow. I'd tape the camp flyer to my bedroom wall, this grainy photo of kids with easels, and I'd stare at it every night, counting down. Claire was 19, home from college, working at the Gap and dating some guy with a motorcycle. 2 days before I was supposed to leave, she came home late, her lip busted, her mascara streaked. She wouldn't say much, just muttered something about a fight, and he's an asshole, but Mom freaked out, pacing the kitchen in her nightgown, and Dad went quiet, his jaw tight. The next morning, they sat me down on the couch, green corduroy, sagging in the middle, and Mom's hands were shaking as she held a mug of tea that had gone cold. "Ellie, we had to use your camp money," she said, her voice cracking. "Claire might need a lawyer. We don't know what's coming, and we can't risk it. You understand, don't you?" I didn't. My chest felt like it was caving in, but I nodded, staring at the carpet, brown shag, worn thin by the TV. They'd taken my $300 and handed it to some suit in a suit, just in case Claire's mess turned legal. She didn't even thank me. A month later, she took off with a new guy, some dude with a goatee and a beat-up Camaro, leaving me with an empty summer and a sketchbook I couldn't bring myself to open. I'd sit on the back porch, the wood splintering under my thighs, and draw nothing, hating her a little more each day. I got over it, or I thought I did. Life kept going. I went to community college, studied art, met Nate. He's 35 now, a mechanic who smells like engine grease and laughs at his own terrible puns. We got married 5 years ago in a park near Dayton, just 20 people, folding chairs, and a playlist I'd burned onto a CD. It was small, perfect. We moved into this creaky 2-story rental, peeling white paint, a porch that sags on one side, with our mutt, Juniper, this scruffy black and tan thing who barks at leaves. I teach art part-time at the college, intro classes with sleepy 19-year-olds, and sell watercolor prints online, flowers mostly, sometimes birds. It's not fancy, but it's ours, a life I built from scratch. Claire, though, she never stopped running. She'd bounce from city to city, Chicago, Denver, Nashville, chasing jobs she'd lose, men she'd dump, dreams she'd ditch. She'd call every few months, her voice all bright and fake, like we were still kids sharing a room. "Ellie, you won't believe this guy the first met." Or, "I'm totally killing it at this bar gig." I'd listen, murmur the right things, "That's great, Claire," and hang up feeling like I'd been holding my breath. She'd never ask about me, not really. I'd tell myself it was fine. She was just Claire. Then Mom got sick. 4 years ago, breast cancer, stage 3. It hit like a freight train. I moved back to Cincinnati, rented a cheap apartment near the hospital, and threw myself into helping. I'd cook her chicken soup she couldn't keep down, drive her to chemo in Dad's rattling old Ford, sit by her bed when the pain kept her awake. She'd squeeze my hand, her fingers thin as twigs, and whisper, "You're my rock, Ellie." I'd smile, even though I felt like I was crumbling. Claire showed up for a week, swept in with a duffel bag and a flood of tears, promising she'd stay. She'd sit with Mom, tell loud stories about her latest boyfriend, make it about her. Then she bailed. "I can't handle this," she texted me one night. "You're stronger than me, Ellie." I wasn't stronger. I was just there. Mom died 2 years later, her breathing shallow until it stopped, and I held her hand until the nurses made me let go. Dad had a heart attack 6 months after, too much grief, too many cigarettes. Claire didn't come to either funeral. "Flights are too expensive," she said over the phone, her voice small. I buried them alone, shoveling dirt in my mind every time I thought of her. So when she knocked on my door 3 weeks ago, I should have slammed it shut. It was a Tuesday, late afternoon, the sky gray and heavy with rain that wouldn't fall. Nate was at the garage, fixing some guy's transmission, and Juniper was losing her mind, barking at the shadow on the porch. I opened the door, and there was Claire, suitcase in hand, hair tangled, mascara streaking her cheeks like she'd been crying for hours. "Ellie," she said, her voice breaking, "I've got nowhere else. I lost my job, my apartment, everything's gone. Can I stay, please?" She looked like a kicked dog, all trembling lips and red eyes, and I stood there, my hand on the doorknob, every memory flashing by, art camp, Mom's hospital room, the empty pews at Dad's service. But she was my sister. I stepped aside and let her in. The first week wasn't terrible. She slept on the couch, our lumpy gray one with a coffee stain from last Christmas, thanked me for every meal I threw together, even walked Juniper once, her leash tangled around Claire's legs. Nate was wary, he'd never liked her much, always said she sucked the air out of a room, but he saw how torn I was and kept quiet. I thought maybe she'd changed, that losing everything had humbled her. I was wrong. It started small. She'd leave dishes in the sink, plates crusted with spaghetti sauce, mugs with lipstick stains, until I'd wash them myself, muttering under my breath. She'd drink my wine, the cheap Pinot Grigio I keep for rough days, without asking, pouring it into a chipped mug like it was hers. She'd blast her music, some auto-tuned pop crap, loud enough that the old guy next door banged on the wall with his cane. I'd grit my teeth, tell myself it was temporary, that she'd get a job and move out. But it got worse. She started picking at me, little jabs that stung more than they should. "This chicken's too salty, Ellie," she'd say, pushing her plate away like I'd poisoned her. "Still painting those little flowers? Cute, I guess." She'd smirk at Nate, "He's sweet, but kinda boring, huh," and he'd just raise an eyebrow, too good to snap back. I'd lie awake at night, Juniper snoring at my feet, staring at the ceiling, popcorn texture, a crack by the light fixture, wondering why I'd let her in. I'd hear Mom's voice, soft and pleading, "She's your sister, Ellie. Family's family." But what about me? Didn't I get a say? Last Saturday was the breaking point. I'd been at the college all morning, teaching a class on shading, 20 kids yawning over their sketchpads, and came home exhausted, my bag heavy with graded assignments. The house smelled like smoke. Claire had been chain smoking on the porch again, even though I'd asked her to stop, and I heard her voice, loud and laughing, from upstairs. I climbed the steps, my sneakers squeaking on the wood, and found her in my studio. It's the spare room, this tiny space with slanted ceilings and a window that sticks, where I keep my easel, my paints, my sanity. She'd shoved my easel into the corner, knocked over a jar of brushes, and set up her laptop on my table, scarred with paint splatters from years of work. She was on a video call with some guy, twirling her hair, giggling like a teenager. A half-finished canvas, bluebells I'd been painting for a client, had coffee rings on it, brown stains bleeding into the petals. I lost it. "What the hell, Claire?" I yelled, my voice shaking. She looked up, startled, then rolled her eyes. Relax, Ellie, I needed somewhere quiet. You weren't using it. I grabbed her laptop, slammed it shut, and pointed at the door. Get out. Out of my studio, out of my house. I'm done. She stared at me, then laughed, cold, sharp, like she couldn't believe I'd fight back. Wow, you're so dramatic. Still mad about that camp thing from a million years ago. Get over yourself. I didn't answer. I stormed downstairs, yanked her suitcase from the closet, red, scuffed, missing a wheel, and started shoving her clothes in, socks and shirts spilling onto the floor. She followed, yelling, "You're a selfish bitch, Ellie. I've got nothing, and you're throwing me out," but I didn't stop. I dragged the suitcase to the porch, tossed it into the yard, and locked the door behind her. She stood there, screaming, banging on the glass, tears streaming down her face. You hate me. You've always hated me. I watched through the window, my heart pounding, until she grabbed her bag and stomped off into the dusk. Nate got home an hour later, found me curled on the couch with Juniper, and didn't say a word, just pulled me into his arms and held me while I cried. You did the right thing, he said later, his voice low. She's been leeching off you forever. You deserve some peace. But peace didn't come. My phone's been blowing up since. Aunt Karen, Mom's sister, called me yesterday, her voice all tight and judgy. Claire's in a bad spot, Ellie. How could you kick her out? She's family. Uncle Mike, Dad's brother, texted, blood sticks together, kid. You're better than this. My cousin Jess, who's always been Team Claire, sent a novel of a message. She's a mess right now, Ellie. She's got no job, no place, she needs you. Give her one more chance. They keep piling on, and I can hear Mom's ghost in every word. She's your sister. It's like a loop I can't escape. Nate's on my side. He says Claire's had years to grow up, that I don't owe her my life just because we share DNA. My best friend, Mara, agrees. She's seen Claire pull this crap since we were teens, but she thinks I should have set rules instead of kicking her out cold. I don't know. I keep replaying it. Her red eyes when she showed up, her laugh in my studio, the way she looked at me like I'd betrayed her. She's got nothing now, and I'm the one who pushed her over the edge. But then I think about the art camp, Mom's hospital bed, the funerals she skipped, the coffee rings on my canvas, and I feel this rage bubble up, hot and sharp. I've spent my life bending for her, dimming my light so she could shine. Maybe this time, I wanted it for myself. So, Reddit, here's the question: am I the asshole for kicking Claire out after she took over my house, my space, my peace? Or should I have sucked it up, let her stay, and tried to fix her mess one more time? I need your judgment, because I'm lost in this, and I can't tell if I'm the villain or just someone who's finally had enough.